My name is Naoíse Sweeney and I'm a Professor of Greek Archaeology. Welcome to my exp. Cilicia lies in the south of the Anatolian Peninsula. If you go immediately north from Cyprus, the first bit of land that you hit in Anatolia is Cilicia. It's a really interesting part of the ancient world in particular because it really was a crossroads of cultures and civilizations. It is located at the point where overland routes coming down north through Anatolia, but also through the Caucasus, will meet the overland routes coming up through Mesopotamia and from the Near East, but also that's where they also join with the sea routes which will connect the Mediterranean as well. Throughout history, Cilicia has been very much a melting pot. In the medieval period, we know that this was the location of Arab groups, Armenian groups, as well as Greek groups, Byzantine Greeks as well. Cilicia is the point of the Anatolian Peninsula where you drop down from the highlands of the Anatolian Plateau into the lowlands that border the Mediterranean. Uniquely within the ancient Greek world, Cilicia really is a melting pot of different peoples. So it's perhaps the edges of a settled Greek area, but it is also very much on the fringes of the Near Eastern world too. We know that we have large communities of Phoenician speakers who live here. We know that we have communities of people who are speaking the indigenous Anatolian language of Luwian. We know that this area gets incorporated relatively early into the Neo-Assyrian, the Neo-Babylonian, and then the Achaemenid Persian empires. So we really have this layering of different types of ethnic and linguistic groups coexisting together throughout antiquity. And for me, this is part of why Cilicia is so exciting. So Cilicia is really a region where we can see a fantastic patchwork of different cultural traditions. So Greek traditions, certainly, but also Anatolian vernacular traditions, Persian traditions, Near Eastern traditions, Cypriot traditions, Phoenician traditions. In terms of trying to understand Greekness in antiquity, Cilicia really helps us to kind of push at the boundaries of what was considered Greek, what was considered not Greek, how Greekness could coexist alongside and be interconnected with other types of identities and other kinds of cultural traits. Archaeological research in Cilicia is particularly exciting because of this cultural diversity. When you are excavating, you can find artifacts which are typically Aegean Greek in style and manufacture, but these will be coexisting in the same assemblages as artifacts which have been imported from the Persian Empire, or artifacts which come from an indigenous Anatolian tradition. The Persians conquer Cilicia in the middle of the 6th century. The impact of Persian imperialism is initially fairly light. Things carry on more or less the same as they have done for generations before, and we continue to find a patchwork of different groups operating within the region. Over the course of time, however, Persian imperialism begins to weigh more and more heavily on the people of Cilicia, and we start to see a polarization in terms of the cultural orientation of different communities. There are some communities which align themselves more and more closely with the Persian occupiers, and there are some communities which seem to try and be the polar opposite of the Persians. At the start of the 5th century, we have had a series of open conflicts between a coalition of Greek city-states in the Aegean and the Persian Empire. This has led to ongoing tensions and campaigns around the Eastern Mediterranean by that Greek coalition. The Greek coalition has fought naval battles off the coast of Cyprus and Egypt. Around this time, there's a developing rhetoric of Greekness as an opposition to Persianness, as Greeks being the freedom fighters or the resistance against Persian imperialism, especially against the spread of Persian imperialism in Western Anatolia and into continental Europe. For the Cilician cities, Greekness then has a powerful political force. Greekness may not have been something that they necessarily felt. They didn't necessarily feel a deep-seated sense of Greek identity and roots, but Greekness is almost a political stance. It is something that they can embrace as a way of expressing their opposition to Persian imperialism. We know that this resulted in a series of different revolts and rebellions. Some of these were armed, some of these were more political in nature. These included support for the rebellion of a Persian pretender to the throne, Cyrus the Younger, in the early 4th century. It also resulted in support for the breakaway activities of the Cypriot king Evagrius I. The end of all this process comes about with the conquests of Alexander of Macedon at the end of the 4th century, when Alexander conquers the Persian Empire and transforms it into a kind of a Perso-Greek Macedonian empire. All of these debates become reimagined in this Hellenistic Greek world. From that point onwards, after the conquests of Alexander of Macedon, the Greekness of the Cilician cities ceases to have any real political meaning. And the Cilician cities just then become part of this wider Hellenistic world, a Hellenistic world which is a fundamentally hybridized world which incorporates Greek and Near Eastern elements. What I think the case of ancient Cilicia can tell us is that cultural identities are always political. We feel certain elements of cultural identity more or less strongly in relation to the political environment that we're in. Whether it's consciously or unconsciously, that varies, but culture is always political. So if there's one misconception this should help us address, it is the misconception that identity is always necessarily primordial and underlying and that it's always been there. The case of Cilicia really helps us to understand that identities can change, and they can change quite rapidly in response to specific historical contexts.